Good afternoon. Thank you for joining the Maintaining and Enhancing Hydroelectricity Incentives Public Informational Webinar. I'm Luciana Ciacci, the Stakeholder Engagement Lead for the Hydroelectric Incentives Program, and I will be facilitating today's webinar. So we'll get started with webinar logistics. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available on DOE's website. If you do not wish to have your voice recorded, please do not speak during the webinar or disconnect now. If you do not wish to have your image recorded, please turn off your camera or participate by phone. If you do speak during the webinar or use a video connection, you are presumed to consent to the recording and to the use of your image. If you have audio issues, please try calling in via phone, and we will have a question period. If you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand using the Zoom function, and comments will be taken in the order of raised hands. The purpose of today's webinar is to provide clarity on the guidance application document for the Maintaining and Enhancing Hydroelectricity Incentives Program. We are unable to comment on or provide any eligibility determinations outside of reviewing a completed and submitted application during an open solicitation window. The guidance document supersedes any content that is within today's webinar. And we strongly encourage applicants to read the guidance document carefully. And I'll need to read this notice in its totality. The goal of this session is to provide clarity on the guidance application document and not solicit consensus advice regarding topics presented. If advice is rendered, we caution members to provide, based on your personal experience, your individual advice, information, or facts regarding this topic. It is not the objective of this session to obtain any group position or consensus. Rather, the Department of Energy is seeking to clarify any questions regarding the guidance application document. To most effectively use our limited time, please refrain from passing judgment on another participant's recommendations or advice, and instead concentrate on your individual experiences. Okay, and we'll move on with the agenda. As I mentioned, I'm Luciana Ciacci, Stakeholder Engagement Lead for the Hydroelectric Incentives Program, and I will be facilitating today's session. We have Maria Robinson with us, the Director of the Grid Deployment Office, and she will provide opening remarks. Tim Welsh, the Hydroelectric Incentives Program Manager, will provide an overview, and we'll move on to the public question period, starting with general questions, then going to grid resilience, dam safety, and environmental improvements. We'll end with next steps and closing remarks. And with that, I will pass it over to Maria. Maria, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Luciana. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on what time zone you are currently in. So it's wonderful to be with you here again. As mentioned, I'm Maria Robinson, head of the Grid Deployment Office here at the Department of Energy, and want to welcome everyone for joining today's webinar on the Hydroelectric Incentives Program, obviously focusing on the application guidance for the Section 247, Maintaining and Enhancing Hydroelectricity Incentives that we released on May 8th. So while you may know the Grid Deployment Office from some of our other programs, such as Transmission Facilitation Program or the Grid Resilience and Innovation Partnerships GRIP program, we're here to discuss hydroelectric incentives. As I'm sure that many of you here know, the bipartisan infrastructure law invested historic funding for the hydropower industry at nearly $554 million in total funding for this incentive, and over $750 million overall across the three different incentives within the hydroelectric incentives program. We recognize the essential role that hydropower will play in accomplishing President Biden's ambitious climate goals, and we want to ensure that the existing fleet is able to continue to provide clean and affordable electricity while improving the ability to integrate more renewables as well as reduce environmental impacts. So the Section 247, maintaining and enhancing hydroelectricity incentive we're here to discuss today, was created to support the implementation of capital improvements to maintain as well as to enhance our existing hydropower facilities. I want to thank all of you for the feedback that we received to our request for information and on our draft application guidance. We thoroughly considered all of the responses received in the development of the application guidance, and it was really helpful to have that feedback from all of you. So we're incredibly grateful. And we're also grateful for you to be here today for this session. We hope that you find it informative, and we thank you for taking part in today's webinar. So I'm going to turn it over to Tim Welsh, who will provide an overview on the incentive and solicitation. Over to you, Tim.
Thank you, Maria. So just to begin, I thought I'd give a little bit of a context on our incentives program as a whole. As many of you know, it consists of three separate hydroelectric incentives that were born out of EPAct 2005 and funded by the bipartisan infrastructure law. The first one that has been around for quite some time is the hydroelectric production incentives, Section 242, adding power to non-power dams. And that recently closed about 2 weeks ago, and we had a record 76 applications. That's almost 20 applications more than we received last year. And it's for electricity generated and sold in both 2 calendar years, calendar year 21 and 22. One incentive that is currently open and on the streets will be accepting applications. The hydroelectric efficiency improvement incentives, so Section 243, and the deadline for submitting applications for 243 is 5 o'clock on June 20th of this year. Now, the efficiency improvement incentives is to improve generation efficiency by at least 3% or more. So that is currently open for applications. Now today, as Maria said, we will be talking about Section 247, which is maintaining and enhancing the hydroelectricity incentives. So a little bit of background. The application period opened in the beginning of the month, and the guidance was released back on May 8th this month, just a couple of weeks ago. Now, this guidance is a reflection of stakeholder feedback that we got in 2 ways. First, a request for information back last summer, released on June 20th, 2022. And then, as Maria mentioned, the draft guidance that we sent out for public comment that was released back on February 8th, 2023. So we took comments and gathered information from both of those vehicles to come up with the final guidance that we released back in early May, and that we're going to talk to you about today. Okay, so background on 247. It funds capital improvements at qualified facilities. What is a qualified facility? And that's basically a FERC licensed project. The total amount of funding provided by the bipartisan infrastructure law was $553,600,000 to remain available until expended. So the incentive payments here should not exceed 30% of the total costs of the applicable capital improvement, and not more than $5 million to any facility in any fiscal year. We created a special carve out that we call 25% reserved for small projects that we're defining that has a nameplate capacity of 10 megawatts or less, owned or operated by a small business, Indian tribe, municipality, nonprofit organization, or electric cooperative. So the Section 247 incentive enhances existing facility in these 3 main areas: grid resilience, dam safety, and environmental improvements. Now, each of these areas have sub areas, and for improving grid resilience, we'll be looking at projects that result in adapting more quickly to grid conditions, provide ancillary services, integrating other variable sources of electricity generation, and manage reservoir sediments. Under dam safety, we'll be looking at maintenance, upgrades of spillways or other pertinent structures, dam stability improvements, including erosion repair and enhanced seepage controls, upgrades or replacement of floodgates or natural infrastructure restoration to improve our protection to improve and flood risk reduction. And finally, under environmental improvements, fall under these 4 categories, adding or improving fish passage, improving water quality, promoting downstream sediment transport and habitat maintenance, and improving recreational access. So what are the changes that we made from the draft guidance to the final guidance? The first and probably most important and most prominent thing, we extended the application window quite a bit from the proposed 60, and we increased it to 150 days. In addition to that, we also added a requirement to file a letter of intent. That's just a short, brief description of your project and how much funding you'll be seeking, and that will be within the first 45 days. And the full application period will be the next 105 days for a full application period. Now, to allow for capital improvements that have begun but not yet completed permitting or NEPA, we will be awards that will be conditioned upon successful completion of permitting. Now, to provide some seed funding to begin projects, we will make an initial payment of 1/3 of the total qualified incentive payment upon FERC authorization. We also want to direct you to addition of some frequently asked questions based on a lot of questions that we've got in only the 2 weeks that the final guidance has been on the street to provide additional clarity beyond the guidance itself. So what happens if we're oversubscribed? And this is something that we are anticipating. How do we decide what projects will be funded? Now, first of all, and most importantly, it is our intent to fully fund as many eligible projects as possible. So we're hopefully we are going to expend all of the money. Now, in order to do this, we developed a scoring criteria rubric so we can make prioritization on which capital improvement applications are awarded funding. So the top scoring applications will be selected in each of the 3 capital improvement categories: the grid resilience, the dam safety, and the environmental improvements for both small projects and remaining eligible projects. They will not compete against each other, but we will evaluate them in the event of oversubscription in 2 separate categories. Any applications with the same ranking, in other words, ties, will be ranked by nameplate capacity. All right, and at this point on the information to apply, I will turn things back over to Luciana.
Thanks, Tim. So in terms of applying, letters of intent must be filed by prospective applicants prior to filing a full application. Letters of intent are due June 22nd by 5 p.m. ET, and full applications are due October 6th by 5 p.m. Eastern. And the letters of intent as well as the full applications are to be submitted within the Clean Energy Infrastructure Funding Opportunity Exchange. This is the same system that we used this year for 242 and 243. So as I mentioned, submit applications within the Clean Energy Infrastructure Funding Opportunity Exchange. The link is within the chat as well as available on the website. An applicant will need to submit an application within the system or create an account, and we recommend that be done in a timely manner. If you have technical issues, please contact Infrastructure Exchange Support at hq.doe.gov. And questions related more to the program, the guidance, should be sent to the hydroelectric incentives at hq.doe.gov email address. In terms of submitting a letter of intent, the information on this slide is included within the guidance. This is the general facility information, a description of the capital improvement project, designating whether you're applying as a small project and selecting the category, as well as authorizations, the current status of the project, and the expected or actual capital costs. So this information is also included within Exchange with an instructions document located under Documents. So when submitting a letter of intent, this is the screen that you will see within Exchange. The information that I just highlighted a moment ago should be entered within the abstract field. The other fields should be completed, and an individual would then click the Create Letter of Intent. Once that is done, the letter of intent has been submitted. So in terms of qualified payment steps, this is similar to 242 and 243 as well. An applicant will need to obtain their tax identification number, as well as create or update their federal system for award management account, which will then generate their unique entity ID. And we recommend that this process be started as soon as possible. We've received some questions on the community benefits plan. The template for this plan was recently uploaded within the 247 webpage, as well as DOE has created an About Community Benefits Plan webpage that includes information on community benefits plans, as well as frequently asked questions. And so the community benefits plan has 4 unique sections to it, or goals: the community and labor engagement, investing in the American workforce, advancing diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, as well as the Justice 40 initiative. For 247, the submittal of the template will be required. So we just wanted to make sure that we highlighted that. Okay, and we are ready to start the general question period. So we've designated 30 minutes for this, this section of the question period. If we do run over, but we have time at the end of the webinar, we can go back to general questions. And so we'll take questions in the order of raised hands. Okay, Jeannie Finger.
Hi, thank you. 2 questions for you. One is regarding the small project criteria. Wanted to ask if that will be strictly about the nameplate, or for instance, we have a nameplate capacity that's larger than 10 megawatts, but actual generator output, because of river constraints and whatnot, is actually around that 10 megawatt level. So can you comment on if that will be strictly applied as nameplate only?
We'll be looking at the nameplate capacity for that 10 megawatts.
Okay. The second question is about what constitutes FERC authorization. So would that be an email or a letter with a general agreement on the need for the project, or is it a letter authorizing construction, like after the construction package has been reviewed and approved by the FERC, or is it a point, before that stage? that constitutes
It's,
FERC
it,
authorization?
it can take a variety of forms depending on the particular project. If it's something that requires strict FERC approval, some sort of order, whether it be a delegated order or a letter order, authorizing it, or in instances that you do not believe FERC authorization is necessary, some sort of documentation from FERC supporting your position there.
Okay, yeah, because the timing matters. The deadline for the application may come before we get approval of the construction package, but some other type of approval of the project in general would be acceptable, is what I think I hear you're saying.
Yes.
Thank you.
Edward Brennan. Edward, we can't hear you.
How about now?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Yeah, the slides on the letter of intent gave more clarification, but I'm guessing that it is a separate letter of intent per planned application submittal, as opposed to if you have multiple applications that you're planning to submit under Section 247, you can't have one letter of intent that covers them all.
That's right. It's a letter of intent per application.
Okay, then I would just suggest you consider, if when you next update the frequently asked questions, to add that clarification.
Thank you.
Jeff Leahy.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, great. Two quick questions. One on the community benefits plan template. Having seen it for the first time, there have been some questions for companies that have done community benefits responses, plan responses for other DOE programs. Is this specific to the hydro programs, or is this sort of a general template that all of DOE is moving to? I asked, considering also too that you referenced that the sort of DOE-wide website on community benefits plans. So is this something that people should be expecting not only in these programs, but potentially in other programs coming out from DOE?
So this is it's a DOE-wide
Okay,
template. Mm-hmm.
thank you. One quick question with regards to SAM. I think I've heard what you said on this call as well, that it is taking longer to get the required updates or new accounts through that process. In some cases, I'm hearing it's taking several weeks. I think that needs to be in place prior to the application, and for 247, that gives us a lot of time. But as you mentioned, Tim, 243 is coming up within a matter of weeks. Is there something that can be done if people have made applications for SAM, but they don't have all the information back before the deadline for the application comes up?
I'm not really sure, Jeff. Do you have to have SAM prior to filing the application or prior to payment? I'm asking my.
I think when Lucci went through the LOI, I think Lucci, when you went through the LOI, there was a unique entity identifier line there too, and so
Okay.
that's sort of what sparked that question.
Okay. Anything from my team?
Yeah, I would say the UEI is truly crucial to the payments. And so I wouldn't let it stop you from submitting an LOI or an application. Just let us know that that's what's going on. You can like take a screenshot that it's in process, but it's not on your end that it's slow. And then we can help you work around it so you don't, get timed out for that.
Thank you. That's helpful. I certainly have been expressing to people to do that, but depending on the backlog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kathy Hoverman.
Great, thank you. So if someone is applying for a 242 grant, would that affect their success under this 247?
No, there's no link between those two incentives.
Okay, super. And then can, if I am not an owner, I would essentially be an owner representative. Can I use my SAM, my company's SAM, to do an application on behalf of an owner, or does the owner have to possess the SAM?
Madden?
Sorry, can you repeat that real quick? You're saying is it like an issue of parent companies?
No, I would essentially be like a contractor, the engineer sort of thing. Could we apply for the grant using our SAM, or does the owner of the dam have to have their own SAM?
The SAM account and the UEI number, that will determine like who ends up with the money if you're successful. And so if you, as not the owner of the dam, are the applicant, and that's the UEI number we have, like you'll receive the payment rather than the owner of the facility. I would defer to the guidance. I'm not sure if there's a preference, but that would just be my note, that if you're intending for whoever you're intending to end up with the payment should be the UEI number and the SAM account that is used.
Okay, so in the document, it says an owner or authorized operator as far as who may apply. So I guess that's sounding like I couldn't apply for it on their behalf, and that you would actually want the owner. So it needs to be, they need to have their own SAM account for that.
I think
Yeah.
generally that would be our preference.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Thank you.
Jonathan Jacobs.
Yes, a couple of questions. First of all, in terms of eligibility, would a project that was built between 1920 and 1959 in Alaska or Hawaii before statehood, but under territorial authority, be eligible for this grant program?
So I would refer you to the guidance. I would read the guidance. It was very clear on eligibility. And if that's one of the carve-outs, I would read because the statute's very clear on.
Okay. Second question, the guidance mentions a 25%, up to 25% set aside for small projects. Does that mean that you would approve grants to small projects preferentially up to 20% of the dollars, or that there will be a set aside amount that you have not yet determined, but will be 25% or less of the total budget?
It will be a 25% set aside total amount of the funding.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Madeline Mignot.
Hello. I have a couple of questions. First is there a maximum date for planned start of construction for the project to be eligible? So for example, if we have a project in relicensing and there will be required fish passage improvements, but those are not planned to be implemented until a couple of years after relicensing is complete. So that would be, say, 5 years from now. Can we still apply for a grant?
That,
even though we're not planning to start construction until
Madeline, that's a great question, and we are in the process of developing a frequently asked question to provide clarity there.
Okay.
Our preference is that the project would commence within 3 years of when the award is made and when there's final FERC approval.
Okay. But so in this case, final FERC approval would be the new license, correct?
Let me check on that.
Okay.
You're correct, Madeline.
That's how I would interpret it.
Yes. Lucci, is it? I thought it was 3 years from the award or from the eligibility determination.
3 years after the selection.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Understood. And then I just wanted to confirm that one could apply for both a section 243 and section 247 grant for the same capital improvement if it both improved efficiency by 3% and improved dam safety, for example? And you could get both grants?
Yes,
Thank you.
you would have to make a case that it does both.
Understood.
JC Robbins.
Yes, I had a question. We're working on a project that we've talked to FERC at the beginning. And everything about the project is an exempted FERC project, but would you need a letter of determination for us to apply, or
Yeah,
is us
Yeah.
meeting all those things that exempt us sufficient?
some sort of documentation from FERC, please.
Okay. We have a write-up from the two lawyers that talk, but I'm thinking, do you want something more official than this memorandum that the lawyers wrote up?
The FERC lawyers?
No, it was our district lawyer that wrote it up in the conversation with the FERC attorneys, but that
We'd
might
like
not
some-
be an official enough statement.
We would like something from FERC, please.
Okay, understand.
Yep.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Pepe. You're on mute.
He did put a question in the chat.
Do we have it?
Does it have to be a FERC or can it be a EPAct State of Maine dam?
Again, I would refer you to the guidance, which follows the statute.
Michael Drain.
Sorry, had to find my unmute there. Am I allowed to ask more than one question?
Sure, of course,
Good. 'cause
but not more than 4.
That was one. Okay, here's my 4 if it don't.
Oh, no.
So at the start of the guidance, I mean, I keep hearing the $5 million per project, but the guidance says $5 million per project per fiscal year. If it's not oversubscribed, is there the potential that you could end up then getting more than the $5 million by going into the second fiscal year?
I would think there was potential if we do another solicitation in another fiscal year.
Okay, all right, thank you. Everything I'm hearing and most of what I read in the guidance suggests that you can not only apply for, but maybe receive more than one award subject to the $5 million limit. But there is some language on page 1 of the guidance under the purpose and scope, which says that all developments within a single license will be treated as a single hydropower facility and may receive one incentive payment subject to the above limitations. So if you get more than one award, do you have to pick one, or you'll just get one payment that covers more than one award?
You'll get one payment, not more than $5 million.
Okay, but it can, okay.
Mhm.
I think I understand that.
Yep.
The definition of a capital project makes reference to utilizing, capitalized in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So if there are certain types of things from a design standpoint that can be appropriately capitalized, that would be eligible to count toward the cost. It doesn't just have to be physical improvement.
I would refer you to the guidance.
Okay, all right. Well, that's why I was quoting the guidance to see whether or not you
Yeah.
on that. Okay, and then, I
Wow,
heard-
you did have more than 4.
This is number 4. This is
Oh,
number
yeah, okay.
And then I heard you in response to another question say, we need to see something from FERC. Was that just with regard to the exemption? Because my understanding is in some cases, you can show that certain maintenance activities already by FERC regulation don't require you to get FERC approval. And so I wouldn't have to get a letter from FERC that says, yes, this is consistent with our regulations. We could just point you to the regulation that shows that it's
Some sort of documentation.
okay, not necessarily something from FERC.
Something from FERC
Precisely.
would be helpful because, okay, something from FERC will be helpful.
Are their own regulations sufficient or something from FERC specific to the particular?
Yeah, I think just pointing out the regulations.
Okay, thank you.
And if we have any questions regarding your interpretation of the regulations, then we'll go to FERC.
Oh, okay. So you might come back and then maybe ask FERC a question.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Or ask you.
Gotcha. Yeah, and we'll ask them.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael.
Ryan Grondin.
Hi, Lucci. I was wondering, under the environmental improvements category, previously I'd seen mention of dam removal as qualifying, and I don't see it in the guidance. Does it qualify or does it not qualify?
That's a good question. It qualifies with respect to fish passage. But if you are removing a dam, a part of the project, dam removal could be considered some sort of a fish passage enhancement, but the project would still have to generate electricity and remain intact.
Okay, so, all right.
If you're surrendering your project completely, I would say no.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Brandon Robinson.
Yes, hi, thank you for your time. My question is with respect to the Davis-Bacon requirements. I see in the guidance, projects that were completed prior to the application period, may still be eligible, after November 2021, but must still comply with Davis-Bacon, and the guidance says waivers are not available for Davis-Bacon Act requirements. And certainly understand, the purpose of Davis-Bacon being to ensure that laborers and construction workers are paid prevailing wages. I guess my question is, with respect to some of the other Davis-Bacon Act requirements, such as weekly payroll, one can show that prevailing wages were paid retroactively, but you kind of can't unring the bell with some of these other requirements like weekly payroll. And I was wondering if DOE has considered how it might interpret or apply those other Davis-Bacon Act requirements to completed projects, and whether, if there's partial waivers or some sort of flexibility beyond the prevailing wage requirement.
So, Brendan, understand your question here. There are no waivers and there are no exceptions for Davis-Bacon.
Thank you.
Brian Stone.
Yes, I had a quick question about the taxpayer identification number. We're a company that owns several qualified hydroelectric facilities, and we plan to do at least one project on more than one of those facilities. Do we need to create a taxpayer identification number for each facility? That's I guess that's the question. It doesn't seem to make sense, but that's the question.
Yeah. Madden, could you help me out here a little bit?
No, you do not need an
Oh, I thought you said you
individual.
were going to help me.
No,
Tim,
sorry.
no, go ahead, man.
No, it's okay if it's well, I don't know, as it pertains to like projects and eligibility and all that, but it's fine to have just one taxpayer ID for the company. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Jeff? Leahy?
Thank you. Using the Mike Train rule, I'm gonna have a couple of questions, but under 4.
We want to put an FAQ on, more than 4 questions per person.
Tim, very quick question. Just wanted to confirm that with the new guidance that outside FERC project boundary activities are covered under, so for example, like an environmental improvement, like a fish hatchery that might be maybe a part of what you do for the project, but is located outside the project boundary, the FERC project boundary, that would still qualify, something like that.
Yes, but you have to have a nexus to the project.
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
There was a question with regards to, and this goes back to a question somebody else asked, with what if you submit multiple applications and they get ranked, and they're for the same, at the same facility, and you get capped out? Is DOE going to determine that the money goes to the projects as they are ranked? Or does the applicant get to say, I'm going to use the money to any of the projects that I applied for? In other words, does the money go to the projects as they are ranked, regardless if you have multiple applications in at the same facility? If you get my...
Yeah, so we will, that's a good question. So we will fund the projects as they are ranked.
Right, that's what I thought would be the case. Yeah. It's you don't get to choose, it's how they are ranked.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then the last one is, there was a change in the final guidance that talked about the fact that if you're going through the FERC or any other NEPA process that results in significant modifications of the proposed improvement, that you might have to resubmit an application. Is there a way to expand upon that? Because it would seem like the timing of that might not necessarily work out, that if something like that was to happen, it could happen months to a year after the awards are made. And then in which case you're asking them to go back and do another application. I didn't understand how that would work.
Well, remember, we're looking at, any changes that FERC might make. So we would not have made the award yet. So yes, I realize there is a time area here, but
well, right. But for example,
very often. Yes, Jeff?
Right. So for example, if you filed for your permit, your license amendment in late September, right?
Yeah.
And you're making the awards, let's say before the end of the year, and at the beginning of the year, there is a change.
Yes.
Then at that point, what you're saying is that you would have to sort of reapply to ensure that you would get the award.
You would have to amend your application.
Okay.
So that the project that we're funding, we know what we're funding.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. David Huxley Cohen.
Yeah, I had a question to follow up on the one payment of $5 million. So I know that there can only be one award per facility, but if we've identified 2 related projects, would they and the sum of that award is less than 5 million, could we both include those in the application?
Yes. We would prefer 2 applications.
2 applications, but would only one of them be awarded? So like, let's say one of the awards was like...
We could choose 2. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We could choose both of them.
Great. Thank you.
Kathy Hoverman.
Yep. Hi, another question here. The small business definition, Does the applicant have to have an official designation as that, or as long as they meet the definition within the announcement that would be sufficient?
Just meet the definition and file documentation that indicates that you meet the definition.
Okay, super. Thank you.
John Reganese.
Yes, hi. Hey, Tim and Lucy. Question on the, I'm making sure I'm going to repeat things, I guess, that may have been said, but I just want to sort of get a confirmation because I've been hearing different things. By the time of the application, there has to be some sort of initiation or full authorization, initiating for some kind of proof of authorization at the time of application. And to Jeff's point, or something related to Jeff's, by the time the award is done, is there need to be proof that authorization has been granted, or is that still sort of pending?
So it would be a conditional award, John. And
okay, all right. Yeah,
for approval. So we would expect that you would let us know as soon as possible after FERC approval or authorization, but we'll be in contact with FERC as well.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you. Okay, so if as I think I understood, then if the project is to be completed within 3 years of the award, is part of your selection criteria essentially a likelihood or sort of a risk assessment as to whether or not the project will have authorization, or is that 3 years a start or a completed? I didn't quite catch that.
Yeah, Lucci, tell me the definition. We just wrote this up the other day, John.
No, Tim, to be honest with you, I can kind of tell, but it's fine.
So DOE expects projects to be started and completed within 3 years after projects are selected for an incentive payment and permitting is complete.
Okay, I'm not even sure what the last criteria and what that means. If you're saying that, it sounds like you're saying the project needs to be completed within 3 years of the award. I'm just trying to decipher that.
Right, understanding, that there's many factors at play here.
Okay, so I guess that maybe leads to my second or part B. We have a number of DOE grants that we're participating in, and for reasons or somewhat out of our control, things get delayed. Is there extension, or is that 3 years a hard and fast rule that's in the program, or is that more of an extension because of something?
We are always open to discussions on extensions.
Okay, all right. So it's somewhat.
Yep.
It's adaptable or flexible, for lack of a better word.
Yep.
But the criteria question I had. So if you had a project that was started, since 2021 and it's partly underway, you've got the FERC approval, or versus a project that you would like to get funding for, you still have to either amend your application and that's in relicensing, or you gotta file for an amendment that, who knows when it's all going to happen. Is there a risk assessment in your criteria?
I don't know if there's a risk. I mean, we are developing our own metrics for risk assessment, but I don't know if there's any risk assessment criteria.
Well, I meant risk of the project actually using the award is really what I'm saying.
Oh, there's always risk of that, John. And so we will be monitoring these projects, post award, to determine if they are in fact moving forward. And if not, we may have to reevaluate.
No, I get it, but I guess I'm just trying to. So if you had fully funded, or let's try this. If you had enough applications, or a large majority of your applications are already projects that are underway or have FERC approval, are they going to have a preference over ones that have no approval? They're conceptual, they're,
Yeah.
they're
And
at
the answer to your question is no.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for clear. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, thanks. Okay.
Okay, so we are at time. We will, our last person to speak on general questions will be Tom Hickey. And we'll move on. We will come back to general questions if we can later on. Next up is Michael Purdy.
Thanks, Lucia. You can hear me? Regarding the language in the document about permits, and I appreciate the change between draft and final that you have to have applied for your permits. That is that threshold is applying for your FERC changes, right? The changes to your license from FERC or any approvals from FERC.
That's right.
Okay, and so the documentation could be the standard form from eLibrary that your application has been accepted for filing. Okay, great, thanks.
Tony?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you. My question is basically relating to documentation demonstrating compliance with NEPA. I guess what does that really entail? Because my issue is that we are a utility company that is, we are stewards to the Bureau of Reclamation, the All-American Canal, which is part of a big Boulder Act. So we're stewards of a canal that we built on top of a dam. So that should already be in place already, because we're not the owners of the dam. We're just the stewards. So in other words, do we still need to provide demonstrating compliance with NEPA, even though we're not the owners?
To be eligible for this award, you have to be an owner and operator, and you have to be FERC licensed.
So can just provide the FERC license might be the solution here, because I'm kind of having a little bit of an issue trying to find compliances if basically we're the operators, we are the defined operators of the dam, but it is on federal property.
Understood.
And it's owned.
The FERC license holders would be the eligible entity.
Okay. Thank you. That probably should answer.
Tom Hickey?
Similar question on the previous one related to the permits. We're clear on having FERC authorization, but wondering about the additional, like if there's a Army Section 404 permit or a water quality certification, those types of permits, do they have to be completed also?
Yes.
And the guidance says federal, state, or tribal. Sometimes there are county permits, county shoreline permits, or other local. Those are not.
I would just
required.
refer to what the guidance says.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we will come back to general questions if necessary later. Right now we will take a 5-minute break. So we will meet back at 2 Eastern. And before we start with grid resilience, Tim would like to make a comment on one of the frequently asked questions that we've discussed.
Thanks, Lucci. So yeah, a couple things that came up with respect to frequently asked questions. One regarding the commencement of the project. We are as I said, and as John Raganese correctly pointed out, this is something that's kind of ongoing, and we're talking to our lawyers about. And so we'll continue to develop that frequently asked questions. So please keep an eye out on our website and exchange as well for the answer to that particular question. So that it's sort of still in development. With respect to FERC and FERC authorization, I just if it wasn't clear before, I wanted to clarify that we are on ongoing dialogue with FERC. As a matter of fact, we have what we call our FERC DOE coordination plan. And so we will be working hand in hand with FERC with respect to not only authorizations themselves, but things that may not require FERC authorization, as well as where people are in the FERC authorization pipeline as well. So it'll be constant communication between DOE and FERC regarding these issues. And we've talked to them about this extensively. So yeah, just a couple of clarifying things on that. So, okay. What's next, Luci?
Thank you. So next is grid resilience. I'm not sure, Ryan Grondin, if you still have your hand up from general questions or, okay. And Tony, did you have a question specific to grid resilience? Tony?
There'll still be a break.
Looks, do we have any questions on grid resilience?
Luci, I'm trying to get my hand up. This is John Raganese.
We hear you, John.
Thank you. When I think of grid resilience and as an independent, hydro, it's hard to sort of figure out where grid resilience ends. Is it after the demarcation line between ourselves and a grid operator, or is grid resilience a little bit of a more broader general term that could imply reliability improvements? Or are you specifically looking for changes that provide more of the responsiveness characteristics that a grid relies on hydro for? It's just one of these things where it's kind of like, well, what does resilience mean to a hydro operator, not a grid operator?
It really does mean grid, yeah, really does mean hydro operator, John. And it falls under those three categories. We're going to be looking prior to the switch yard. What is the project doing to adapt more quickly to changing grid conditions, provide ancillary services, facilitate variable sources of generation? What specific enhancements, capital improvements you're making to the generation facilities to facilitate those types of grid
characteristics, operating characteristics. Okay, thank you, John.
David Tripp.
Yeah, just kind of a follow-up question on similar to the last one. We've got a 100-year-old hydro facility, and the electrical system within the facility is 100 years old. And if we're going to continue to operate the facility, we need to upgrade the electrical system just because of age and obsolescence of equipment. Does that qualify as grid resilience by being able to continue the operation of the facility?
David, I can't comment directly on eligibility. All I would say is if you can make a case that what you're doing at your plant enhances any one of those sub areas, make the case in the application. That's all I can tell you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any other questions on grid resilience? Okay, we can move on to dam safety. Madeline Mignot.
Hi,
I have a question about the requirement for the application that says that high hazard dams would require a dam inundation map. Is that specific to the proposed improvement? So we have a project and we would propose to make an improvement to a penstock that goes under a building. It is a ways away from the dam itself, and we're not proposing to do anything with the dam. It is currently safe. There's a dam and a canal. The penstock goes under a building. We don't currently have a dam inundation model for this project. So we can do that, but it would be a considerable expense, and it seems unrelated to what we're proposing to do.
So we are looking to score these projects for dam safety, with respect to these 4 areas. And you would have to demonstrate somehow that your dam is a high hazard dam.
Yeah, well, so we have that class. This is a non-jurisdictional project. So we have that classification from the state dam safety office. What I'm asking about is, it says requires a dam inundation map. So I'm interpreting that to be a dam break model, but we don't have that done currently. That would be a considerable expense to have an engineer do that. And we're talking about a penstock that goes under a building is where we would actually be doing the improvement. So do you want a model specific to the penstock? Or the dam?
Boy,
or
I can't, this is case by case, and I can't comment on your very specific. Okay. I'm really sorry, Madeline.
Well, no, it's okay.
I would be remiss if I just made some kind of general.
That particular requirement just seems odd to us, I guess, in context of some of the particular specific improvements that could be funded from this. So maybe I'll email a specific question directly.
Okay.
Wilbur Wang?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, this is a great presentation. My question would be if study portion of capital improvement project be eligible if our construction would be happening in the next 3 years.
Again, Wilbur, as I just previously mentioned, we are in the process of clarifying that particular when the commencement of the selected project needs to be. So I can't give you that answer right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any other questions on dam safety?
Hey, Lucci, can you, this is Jeff. I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Can you just confirm, I think, the change that was made with regards to the dams that are in fair condition and the scoring? I think in the draft guidance document, it was they were given 1 point in the dam safety condition classification ranking system, and now in the chart it says 2. And then, but in the write-up, it still said 1. So I just wanted to confirm on this that it is 2.
It is 2. So the chart carries the day, and
yep.
we'll be clarifying that, Jeff.
Yep. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Drain.
Thank you. My question also relates to the condition classifications. Is this something that you have to have in well, let me put it this way. FERC will often, or inspectors will often say, we believe the condition of the dam is X. And usually you want it to be satisfactory or fair. If that is how it has been identified as of the last formal inspection, but you've now got something that happened that you're hoping to fix with this, that thing you're looking to fix would probably make the dam a worse condition, a satisfactory dam be fair, or a fair dam be poor. Do we just identify that condition that exists that's creating that dam safety condition classification? Or do we have to go to FERC or an inspector and have them confirm that, yes, because this just happened, and until it's fixed, your classification is somehow different?
Michael, we'll be looking at whatever the current classification is.
Right. So the current meaning we can provide information explaining what what it is, or we're looking for a document from someone else that states that.
Well, I would use your whatever your last inspection was.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So the issue I have, and I'm not asking you to rule on it, is we had an inspection, we're satisfactory. Something has now happened we think makes it fair. That's the actual thing we'd like to apply for the funds for to fix.
I understand, but we need to know what it currently is now.
Okay. All right. All right. So we may have to get someone to review that classification. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Michael Swiger.
Hello.
Hey, Mike.
Hi. My question is, the guidelines say that permits either have to be obtained or at least applied for to conduct the work. Are you talking about just federal permits or the full range of state, local, other potential permits?
The state, federal, tribal.
State, federal, tribal. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Alan Butterfield.
Yeah, previously you had mentioned that if there were multiple projects going at the same facility to file multiple applications. I guess if all of the applications are going towards a common goal, such as flood prevention or just overall dam safety, can those be lumped into one application?
So we will be looking at projects at a particular development, one application, although you could file for other areas. That help?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Vanessa Seldal.
Hi, thank you. You got it right. I'm impressed. That's how I know a telemarketer is calling me, is they say my last name wrong. I have a couple questions. My first one is on NEPA. So the dam safety project that I am considering is typically exempt from NEPA.
Okay.
But I'm new to federal funding. So would stating or showing the categorical exemption show compliance with NEPA, or is there something else I need to do to comply with the federal funding?
I would demonstration that it was categorically excluded, and hopefully FERC agreement as well.
Okay. One more quick question. Would is this incentive stackable with other grants, or would it prevent me from applying for a different grant, in your opinion?
All I will say is there's nothing in the statute associated with this particular program that would prevent you from doing that. That's not to say that other grants by other federal agencies might not have those requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry Loon.
Jerry?
Jerry, can't hear you. Okay, we'll come back. to
Sherry, can we come back to you
Yeah.
perhaps? Yep, okay.
John Baganese?
Hi, Lucci. I think Sherry may have written a note in the chat. You could look over, she may be able to get on that way, but in any event.
Thanks, John.
The question that was raised earlier about this sort of distinction, because the language in the authorization or the program talks about projects, not developments. And I can get it. I can understand where you might be like doing a rubber dam at one development and a grid resiliency thing at another development in the project. You'd want separate applications. But in the case where the project for dam safety purposes, something like improving your instrumentation at all your three high hazard dams, wouldn't that make more sense to have? That's the project, is improving dam safety at your high hazard dams within the project. I'm just trying to limit the number of applications one has to.
Yeah, John. Boy, there's so many iterations here.
Yeah, no, I get it. I guess I don't want to be.
Yeah, take
paused.
it case by case. I don't know, John. It's hard to say. I see what you're saying, where you're doing some kind of instrument.
But see, not knowing that, would that be something you would want to sort of identify in your letter of intent and then get feedback back from you prior to the application?
Yeah. Well, we're not responding to letters of intent, so I would just do what makes sense. Do what makes sense to you.
Okay.
But the important thing here is the $5 million cap per licensed project. That's the thing we're most concerned about.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Thanks, Tim.
Okay. We'll go back to Sherry Loon's question. Ryan Grondin.
Hi, my question is around the ranking of dam safety projects, specifically the dam safety condition classification. So I'm a FERC licensee, and when I look on the National Inventory of Dams website, our dams are listed as not categorized yet. Is that the only category? Is it only the National Inventory of Dams categorization that's accepted? And if so, how do I go about getting the FERC to put the categorization on there?
That's between you and FERC. So somehow, Ryan, you'll have to demonstrate what your condition classification is.
So it's not limited to just the published National Inventory of Dams classification?
Is that Rajesh? Are you on, Rajesh?
Yes, I am on, and Tim, you're right on. We will look at what you provide us. It's not necessarily linked to, yes, we refer to the NID, but it is upon the applicant to tell us what the condition is, and kind of have documentation to prove that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Martins. Peter, we can't hear you. Peter?
We can go back to Peter, I guess. We'll try him again.
Okay.
Or is Peter the last one?
Peter's the last individual with their hand up. I cannot find Sherry's question within the chat.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yay!
I had to switch microphones. Somebody had brought up non-jurisdictional. Are non-jurisdictional hydro projects eligible?
Yeah, so you have to demonstrate that you're a FERC licensed project or whatever the other portion of that a part of the statute says, you know, pre-Federal Power Act.
Okay, okay, so.
Whatever says in the guidance in the statute, that is the eligibility criteria.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. I think another one just popped up there, Lucy.
Is that Alan Butterfield?
Oh.
Oh. Looks like.
Probably me,
Yeah.
Josh Adrian.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it was you, Josh, but.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for this presentation, very helpful. Had a question about the scoring. I see that the most you could get points wise for dam safety would be 14. But and scrolling back up to the other category, grid resiliency, those the maximum points were 20 points. So I suppose you had mentioned before that all of the applicants for each individual category are jockeying for position within that category, correct?
Yeah, so it's within category, and you have to choose your category.
You have to choose your category. Is the funding then being evenly distributed between the three?
Yeah, to the extent that we can. What we're going to do once they're scored and ranked across the three categories, we will start with grid resiliency, dams, pick one: grid resiliency, dam safety, environmental improvements, dam safety, grid resiliency, and we'll just go back and forth and back and forth. So we'll try to get an even spread among the three categories.
Oh, okay. So, and would someone who's applying for dam safety then be a disadvantage to someone who's applying for, or I'm sorry, is someone who's applying for dam safety going to be at a disadvantage to someone who's applying for grid resiliencies because the dam safety could get less points? It doesn't sound like it based on the way you described it just now.
No, it will be scored within the category and ranked.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next, we have Frederick Berlies.
Yes. Hi, Tim and Luciana. Yeah, I have a question. I posted actually in the chat, but is can the grant applicant entity be an entity not being the one directly having the FERC license or FERC exemption, but an entity that have an agreement or a development agreement with the hydro entity that actually has the permit, the FERC permit?
Yeah. No, it will be the entity that holds the permit.
It has to be the entity that holds the permit.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And I take advantage of this small window also to clarify one thing. Tim, you said that the project improvement or can be outside of the project boundary if there is a nexus.
A nexus to the project, yes.
A nexus to the project. What does that mean? Is there any?
That's for you to demonstrate to us what the nexus is, and then we'll make a judgment.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Drain.
Thank you. Tim, you just gave an example to response to another question about you'd rank all the projects according to the three categories, and you said, sort of just go back and forth. But not every project is going to be asking for the full $5 million. So are you saying you're going to try to evenly spread the number of awards between the three equally, but not necessarily the number of dollars?
The number of awards.
Okay. All right. So good to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll go to a question within the chat. Are FERC licensed dams that are not rated high hazard eligible for funding?
Yes, they are eligible for funding.
Okay, related to the dam inundation map requirement for high hazard dams, how recent does the map need to be?
Rajesh, can you help me out with that one a little bit?
So our thinking is that we do not want you to go back and spend unnecessary, funds on this. Whatever you have, most recent, would be good with a good application justification, provided that this is what we have now. So your documentation should prove that what you have is what is prevalent now.
Do we have any other questions on dam safety?
Yeah, can you use like simplified inundation maps like maybe DSS Wise Light or some other like the FEMA software that was out?
Rajesh?
So this is, thank you, Tim. I would do the best you can, provide to us a good, explanation of what you have done. Would be what we will be what we'll be looking at. And if it does not satisfy our requirements, we will get back to you.
John Tobin? John, we can't hear you. Okay, we'll come back to you. Gerald Kruger?
Hi, thank you for all the information. We've got a project where the licensee has a FERC license, but does not generate power. So in that sense, probably doesn't have a nameplate. How could they be eligible for the small project category? Or could they?
They would have a nameplate capacity of 0.
Yeah, right, but I'm not sure that, okay. No, that's obvious, but I don't know if they have the official documentation for that.
Right.
Well,
they obviously they would have to document it.
Yeah.
0.
The other question is on the kind of the FERC status. So the improvements are for dam safety and seepage and stability. And it's been discussed through Part 12s and risk assessments, and FERC is in agreement with proceeding. And by the time the applications are due, we may have a preliminary submittal of the design into FERC. Would that be sufficient for that process starting?
As long as it's sufficient for FERC, it will be sufficient for us.
Okay. Yep. No. Thank you very much.
John Tobin?
Thank you, and sorry about that a moment ago. Just a follow-up question on the dam inundation map. That seems to assume that a high hazard dam is, and I'm not a very experienced hydro person in particular, that a high hazard dam is designated as such because it could threaten things downstream. We have a high hazard dam that is designated that way because of the upstream impoundment forms part of a local water supply. So we wouldn't have those kind of maps, and they wouldn't really be related. And I was just, curious to how that would impact our application. Thank you.
Rajesh.
That is kind of specific to your project. I hear what you say, and you're very right. It is linked to whatever is happening downstream, and this is something kind of exclusive to your project. Maybe there'll be few projects like that. I would say, please explain what's going on and how it is high hazard or whatever hazard category it falls into, and we will look at that and make a decision accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that if a certain thing wasn't met, it wouldn't be dismissed out of hand. I appreciate it.
It will not be summarily dismissed. We will certainly look at your explanation. And if there are any questions, we'll get back to you. Otherwise, we'll make a determination on what is going on.
Thanks again.
Sure.
Okay, and we will move on to environmental improvements. It looks like some folks might still have their hands up. Tony, do you have an environmental improvement question? Okay. Frederick Revis, do you have an environmental improvement question? John Tobin?
Sorry, you handled my questions. Thank you.
Kathy Hoverman?
Yep, hi. So is there a minimum amount that you'd be looking to fund? Specifically thinking of like a small project for something like Fish Passage. An eel pass could be something that is not that high of a cost, and then, but still everybody likes to get a little financial support, and then 30% of that would be a pretty small number. Is that
Right,
okay, or is there a bottom out that you don't want to go under?
There's no minimum.
Okay.
Yep, it's just 30% of the total cost. Yep.
Thanks.
John Raganese?
Hi, Lucy. Another and you may not be able to answer, but generally speaking, if you had a project that both qualified in, say, a dam safety, let's just think of, I don't know, some sort of crest control project or an improved crest control project that actually did have environmental benefits by, not losing boards and draining, reservoir during spawning season or whatever, it has environmental benefits. How do you put them in your buckets? Or if you apply to both buckets, do you get 10 million?
You have to choose a bucket.
Oh, okay. Well, I figured that.
Choose your bucket.
But from a do you like to see things that might have both benefits?
No, we don't. We're not giving any kind of bonus points for multiple categories or anything. No.
Thank you.
Josh, Adrian?
Yeah, thank you again. I had a quick question about the recreation. I see that one of the categories, at least in the scoring of points, is that it's recreation opportunities outside the FERC license or exemption or water quality certificate authorization. I'm curious if you need to apply to FERC to have that new recreational amenity that you're proposing to build included within the license.
That's between you and FERC. So we're just looking at things that are beyond the license. I mean, that aren't required just by your license.
Okay, so you wouldn't need a FERC authorization or even to apply to FERC.
That would be up to you. That would be up to you.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions on environmental improvements? Okay, then I think at this point we can go back to general questions. Michael Drain, I see you have your hand up.
Thank you. So my question is about the community plan. When I look at the scoring matrices, when I read the guidance, it looks like the community benefits plan is it's something sort of it's a yes, no. Did you provide an adequate community benefits plan as part of your application? But I don't see that the information from that goes into the various scoring matrices, except I suppose possibly the one on recreation. There's a there's some points for if it benefits a disadvantaged community. But otherwise, I don't see that. But if I go to DOE's about community benefits plans page that the guidance references to, it says in there, the very first frequently asked questions, it says the 4 categories of the community benefits plan are equally scored. And then later on, it says the only way to receive all community benefit plan points is to have strong commitments in each of the 4 categories. So one document is making it sound like the benefits plan contributes to your ranking. But the guidance looks more like it's just it's a requirement to apply. I didn't know if some clarification could be provided on that.
Yeah, I would follow the guidance for this particular incentive.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, do we have any other general questions? David Hanson.
Taking my question, this is related to how many projects can be addressed for a single hydroelectric facility. And I noticed that we have a project that has multiple developments, and we're contemplating a dam safety and a recreation project. I think I heard you say, Tim, that you can submit 2 applications, 2 full applications, even though there's only 1 allowed for a project with multiple developments?
No, there's multiple allowed date, but it's a cap of $5 million.
Oh, okay. So potentially two projects could win if they didn't exceed the 5 million.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Randy Stats.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm sure you've answered this already, but could you elaborate on the timing of receiving an award, and also on are you only invited to submit an application after you have been scored on the letter of intent?
Well, I'll take your second question first. I just want to correct some language. We're not going to be scoring letters of intent, but you must provide a letter of intent in order to be eligible to file an application. And then the timing, Lucci, what's our latest schedule on the timing? Early 2024?
That's correct. February 2024 notification of selectees.
So we will notify you if you're eligible. So remember, you may be eligible for, if you so choose, for 10% upfront, but the remainder of the funding will not be distributed until the project is completed.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff?
Hey, a couple of quick questions. Can we anticipate that you've discussed multiple times, Tim and Lucci, that there will potentially be multiple frequently asked question responses uploaded in the coming days and weeks? Is there any sort of additional templates or forms that we could expect that DOE would put out to assist in generally speaking applications, or is what we have with the community benefits plan template and what you included in the appendix to the guidance document?
I don't know, Lucci, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the community benefits template is the only template remaining that we had to put out.
That's correct. So the template should be completed. Any supporting documentation will not be included and can be uploaded separate. So it won't count against your page count. But that's all that we have to make available at this point.
Thanks. And I'm just going to ask this question in this forum, though I've asked it in other forums, and I think I know what the answer will be, and you may not even give one, but I'll ask it anyways. With the letters of intent, you'll know whether or not you'll be oversubscribed will the application remain the application and all the requirements of it if you find out that the program is undersubscribed and therefore no ranking?
Yeah, even if we're undersubscribed, Jeff, the requirements and the guidance will remain the same.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Kevin Quillian.
Hello, thank you. I have two questions about the payments. Assuming that the project that was approved was completed prior to the February 2024 announcement date, and so the operator was able to provide all of the completion documentation right then. Do you anticipate having that completion process open in February of 24, and how long would it take to receive the actual payment, or the operator to be on the ball and be able to provide you all that information right away? Is my first question.
Yeah, Kevin, I couldn't give you a specific time frame on that, but if everything has been completed, you would be eligible for the entire award.
Okay, and related to that, my next question is demonstration of costs that are done by employees of the company that has the FERC license. They talk about invoices for showing costs of projects. Is there a preferred way that you would cost projects for it's done by your employees?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
So if I have a third-party contractor do some concrete work, it's easy for me to show that I paid them $100,000 for that work. If I have my employee who I pay, for round numbers, $100 an hour, do a project, how do I show the cost for that? And are there some heuristics for that? Because while I pay them $100 an hour in salary, I also provide medical care and insurance and all these other benefits. Is there some kind of a system that you have for which we would use to demonstrate cost that is incurred by our own employees?
Boy, oh boy. All I can say is it's the cost of the capital improvements. You would have to provide an invoice demonstrating the cost of that capital improvement. Sorry.
So I guess, is that saying that costs that are incurred by your own employees are not eligible since you couldn't provide an invoice for them?
I would refer to the guidance, the cost of the capital improvement.
Okay.
Sorry.
Tom Hickey.
On the Davis-Bacon topic, eligible projects or eligible capital improvements can be for costs incurred after November 15th, 21. So that's in the past. For private contracts between investor-owned utility and a private contractor, there's not a Davis-Bacon process in place. Is it possible to get some guidance on how compliance can be met for activities that happened in the past for a project that is in progress?
Tom, I realize that that's a difficult thing. All I can say is it's DOE's policy that you have to comply or have complied with the Davis-Bacon requirements.
Okay, and there is I see a submittal to the contracting officer, a compliance report. Similarly, there's no contracting officer in this arrangement. Would that be our internal procurement official?
I would. Anyone on my team?
Yeah, this is Rajesh. I think your question is a little, unclear. So it'll be best for you to provide that question to us, and we will formally reply to that question.
Okay. Thank you. And a different question, do you anticipate giving an indication on over or under subscription after the letters of intent?
No, we hadn't planned on doing that. As I said, the requirements won't change. So.
Yeah, okay.
Madeline Mignot.
Mino. I have a follow-up question that is maybe clarifying the previous one related to Davis-Bacon compliance. So if we were planning on starting a project this summer and planning on applying for the grant by October, should we just go ahead and send weekly payroll reports to whom? So that we are compliant with Davis-Bacon? So my understanding is that we have to submit weekly certified payroll report to, if we had received a grant, to the funding agency. But since we're planning on starting the project this summer, we should submit weekly payroll reports while the project is ongoing to DOE, just in case we get the grant?
No, there's no just in case. You would start when you're selected, but then if you were claiming costs prior,
right,
you would have to submit that.
So we just hold on to the payroll reports, and if we
Yes.
get the grant, we give, okay, perfect,
Yes.
thank you, that was my
Yep,
question.
there we go.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay. We'll go back to the chat. Will the size of the up to 25% set aside for small projects be determined before scoring the applications?
I would say yes. I mean, we'll have to know what our pool of resources are before we start selecting projects. Mhm.
Will a planning study portion of a capital improvement project be eligible for 247?
Any member of my team here? We need planning. We'll have to get back to you on that one.
If we have a project, this was already asked, if we have a project that includes grid resilience, dam safety, and environmental improvements, there are three separate applications in each area required, or can they be combined into a single application?
It would be a single application submitted under one of those categories.
Wait a minute, Tim, this is Jeff. Can I clarify with that?
Please.
So I understood that question as Lucci just said, it is that they have multiple capital improvements at a single project, and they're under different categories. And I thought the guidance said that you can submit multiple.
Oh, yes, Jeff, that I misunderstood that question. I thought they were saying, can we file them under multiple categories? So you're saying, you think the question is they have one for grid resiliency, one for dam safety, and one for environmental improvements.
That's how I understood it. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but
Okay. Then it would be 3 applications under each one of those things, but capped at $5 million.
Right, and if they're at, again, the per project number cap is $5 million, but you can submit multiple applications.
Correct. Yeah.
And
yeah.
you also have to submit individual applications, even if they're at the same project, if they're in different categories.
Right.
Yeah, they're talking about a project.
Okay.
Includes grid resiliency and safety.
Got it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Let's see here. So last one that we have, to clarify, for a proposed project that is outside of the boundary of the FERC permit of the hydro, the nexus to the hydro implies that the project needs to be directly interconnected to the project, e.g. a battery system.
Okay. We would have to show us what the nexus is.
And I believe Mike Drew, go ahead. Would you like to clarify?
So Tim, in this case, if we have a battery system that is outside of the boundary of the project, it doesn't need to be directly interconnected into the hydro itself. It can go at least to a substation. Is that and as long as there is a the nexus resilience.
Frederick, I hesitate to determine eligibility of projects here because they're all very nuanced. You just have to demonstrate that your project has a nexus to the hydro project. And however you determine that nexus, you have to demonstrate that to us, and we'll make our judgment based on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and last question, Mike Drain.
Thank you. And just a bit of a clarification on the 5 million. Something that Jeff Feeder asked or someone answered on it. We're not prevented from making application for stuff that would exceed the 5 million. It's just that we will be awarded no more than the 5 million, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
And then if we get more than one award, we get more prioritized more than one.
Yeah, we'll fund the priority project.
Throw one out to
fully, and whatever's left over, we can award you for the other.
Okay.
And if it's not worth it, you can always.
Yeah, that's what I
reject
understood.
it.
I just want to clarify. Thank you.
Okay, I think that we are ready to move on to.
I think Josh might have snuck in under the wire.
Okay. Oh, thanks. I did have a quick question. I think you're right, Tim. I think you're going to be a glut with applications come October 6th, which means FERC is going to be probably a glut with amendment applications around that time, which means that resource agencies are going to be a glut with draft applications.
Yep.
60 days or 30 days in advance of that deadline. I'm wondering if so really, if you're complying with FERC regulations about getting consultation done with state and federal agencies, then as a warning to everyone on the call, I think you have to have your applications into the agencies for review August 6th, which is only what 8-9 weeks away. So I'm wondering if you ended up applying to FERC for the amendment of license, but haven't given the agencies a full period of consultation, but FERC doesn't reject the application, then I think the application is still in good standing. But if FERC were to reject the application for failure to consult or provide enough time to consult, even if you agreed to kind of provide FERC with a supplementary application to show the consultation you've done after the fact, how would you all wrestle with that? It sounds like you're in communication with FERC to some extent about these applications.
We are. Yep.
Okay, so you'd be in consultation with them as to how to handle applications that might be on their face deficient, or AIRs or that kind of thing on applications.
Yeah, we'll be talking to FERC about the status of applications. Absolutely, Josh.
Great. Okay, thank you.
But they rule the day.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. I think that we're ready to move on to schedule.
Oh, okay. Hang on here. Okay, I think we talked a little bit about this. So here's our schedule and kind of where we are. We opened issued the final guidance and opened the solicitation on May 8th. Our application will be due on October 6th. We'll try to, right now we're scheduled to notify selectees and conditional selectees of eligibility hopefully in February of 2024, or at least early 2024. And then, as I mentioned, for 247, the initial payments is once you've received your FERC authorization, you have all your permits that you needed, we can issue the 1/3 payment to begin. And then, of course, our final payments will be upon completion, your demonstration upon completion of work. And in between there, we will be working with you with respect to milestones and monitoring. We may be doing some site visits, but we will hopefully work with you so that we have assurance that the projects are moving forward accordingly.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. We'd like to highlight again for maintaining and enhancing hydroelectricity incentives. Section 247, letters of intent are due June 22nd, and full applications due by 5 p.m. Eastern, October 6th. In order to be eligible to file a full application, you must file the letter of intent through the Clean Energy Infrastructure Funding Opportunity Exchange. And we'd also like to remind folks of the hydroelectric efficiency improvement incentives, section 243 solicitation that is still out. Applications are due June 20th by 5 p.m. Eastern, and applications should be submitted through the same exchange system. We have added frequently asked questions to each of the incentive web pages, and please continue to check back frequently for additions. We also recommend that you sign up for the Grid Deployment Office newsletter. So last week, we sent an alert out that reminded folks of this webinar and also alerted folks of the fact that we had added frequently asked questions. So we recommend that you sign up, and a link should be within the chat. We thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, everyone. Actually really good and provocative questions. And those of you that we couldn't give us a really clear answer to, we will be pondering those questions. So I would recommend that you still look at our frequently asked questions for any updates and clarifications. So feel free to ask us more questions using the Hydro Incentives mailbox, and we'll try to get to as many of your questions as we possibly can. So again, thanks for joining us, and appreciate it. Is that it, Lucy? We okay?
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.